Back to channel. Today we are going to start introduction of abdomen and also the osteology of our lumbar vertebrae. So first we'll start with introduction of abdomen. Actually the abdominal wall is mainly made up of, first you can see here outside, first you have the skin layer. After that you have the superficial fascia. After that you have different muscles and bones, right? Mainly you have the lumbar vertebra and also the lower ribs. All these are involved in this abdomen area. Okay, and after that you have the continuous layer of different fascia. So first you have the diaphragmatic fascia. Okay, let us start from upside to lower side. So first you have diaphragmatic fascia. Okay, next you have fascia transversalis, and next comes the fascia iliaca. After that comes the anterior layer of thoracolumbar fascia. Next comes the pelvic fascia. So like this, different fascias according to the name of the region. And next you have some extra peritoneal connective tissue and also the peritoneum, which provides actually a slippery surface for the movements of abdominal viscera against one another. So all this is just like an introduction for the abdomen. So next we are going to start now the main thing, that is osteology of our lumbar vertebra. It is going to be very easy and interesting topic. So here in this diagram, now you are seeing the lumbar vertebra. Actually this is a typical lumbar vertebra and this is an atypical lumbar vertebra. Atypical means the T5 lumbar vertebra, T5, no, L5. L5 is atypical lumbar vertebra and L1 to L4 are typical lumbar vertebra. So why they are typical, why this is atypical, let us find out. So first we'll start with the typical lumbar vertebra. So you can see here the typical and atypical. So in total there are like 5 lumbar vertebrae. Okay, among this the first to 4 are typical and fifth one is atypical. And mainly this lumbar vertebra is identified like from other vertebra by means of its large body. You can see its body is very large, right? And it is somewhat large size when compared with other vertebra. And by absence of costal facets on the body, actually it doesn't have any costal facets. Whereas if you see in our thoracic vertebra you have the costal facets. So like this you can differentiate the cervical and thoracic vertebra from the lumbar vertebra. Okay, so now we'll discuss the typical features of this typical lumbar vertebra, that is L1 to L4. Okay, so first if you see the body, it's very large and it is wider from side to side and also than from before backwards. If you see its body is in big in size, and the height of the body, if you see here you can see the height of the body, right? The height of the body is slightly greater anteriorly, okay, when compared with posteriorly, and this difference contributes to the forward convexity of the lumbar spine. So because of this only there is a forward convexity of lumbar spine. This is a spine. Okay, yeah, here you can see this is the forward convexity of lumbar spine. Next, coming to vertebral foramen. If you see this vertebral foramen, it's triangular in shape and it's larger than in thoracic region. So you can see it's larger. If you see in thoracic region, it will be smaller. Okay, and of course this vertebral foramen is smaller when you compare this with cervical region. So with thoracic vertebra, if you compare, the lumbar vertebra's vertebral foramen is larger, but if you compare this with cervical region vertebral foramen, then it would be smaller, means cervical region vertebral foramen is larger. Okay, now coming to the pedicels, these are called pedicels, the side ones. Okay, so these pedicels are short and strong and they project backward from the upper part of body, so that the inferior vertebral notches are much deeper than the superior. Yeah, so why these pedicels are like more backwards, because you can see this inferior vertebral notch and this is a superior vertebral notch. The inferior vertebral notch is more deeper when compared with the superior vertebral notch because of this pedicels arrangement. Okay, now coming to the lamina, this is called lamina. This place here you can see it's mentioned lamina. Okay, so lamina are short, thick, broad, and they're directed backwards medially to complete the vertebral foramen posteriorly, and they're overlapping between the lamina of adjoining vertebrae is minimal. Yeah, if you see the overlapping, if you join them together with, for example, this vertebra with this vertebra, then on the back side if you see the overlapping of lamina, there will be no overlapping, or you can say minimal overlapping. That's it. Now coming to the spine, the spine forms a vertical quadrilateral plate which is directed almost backwards and only slightly downwards. It is thickened along the posterior and inferior border. So this is a posterior border, this is the inferior border. You can see it's like thickened, right? Now coming to the transverse process, you can see these are the transverse process. So they are thin, tapering and directed laterally backwards. They are homologous with the ribs in thoracic region, and the posterior inferior aspect of root of each transverse process. If you see the posterior side, okay, so you can see here back side, posterior side. If you see, uh, it's marked by a small rough elevation, and it is also having an accessory process. So this is called accessory process. So small bulge like thing, right? This is accessory process. The accessory process represents the true transverse process of vertebra. Okay, the length of transverse process increases from L1 to L3. So for example, in the L1 it is somewhat smaller. If you go to L2 it will increase, in L3 it will be more. Okay, so later it decreases, means for L5 it will decrease. So that thing you need to remember regarding transverse process. Now coming to superior articular process. So this is called as superior articular process, okay, which is like near to mammillary process, like in the middle here. Actually in superior side, somewhere over here will be the superior articular process. It is lying farther apart than inferior, and each process bears a concave facet facing medially and backwards, and the posterior border is marked by rough elevation and the mammillary process. So posteriorly it has mammillary process, anteriorly it has superior articular process. Okay, now coming to inferior articular process, this is inferior articular process near to like lie near to each other than superior, and this each process bears a convex facet facing laterally and forwards. Actually what they are saying is the superior facet. If you observe this in a real like, so you can see here clearly the superior articular process. Between them, if you see the distance, it is like somewhat far, the distance is more, but between the two inferior articular process, if you see the distance, it's somewhat less. That is the saying. Okay, so now coming to the fifth lumbar vertebrae. So we have understood what are the features of typical lumbar vertebrae. Now you will only find out like what is the difference between the L5, between L1 and L4. So fifth lumbar vertebrae is the most important, having some most important distinguishing features like the transverse process. Clearly you can see how is the transverse process over here and how it is here. You can see the transverse process is somewhat, it's merging with the body, but here it's far apart. Okay, so in L5, the transverse process are very thick, short, pyramidal in shape, and their base is attached to the whole thickness of pedicel. Yeah, their base to the whole thickness of pedicel and encroaches on the side of body. And the distance between the inferior articular process is equal or like more than the distance between the superior articular process. So you can see this is the superior articular process and this is the inferior articular process. You can see the distance is same here. Okay, but here if you see the superior articular process, the distance between them is more, but the distance between the inferior articular process is less. So let me draw a line to understand this. So the distance between inferior articular process, superior articular process, you can see this is more, this is less, and here if you see between two superior articular process and between two inferior articular process, it's like almost same. So this is the main difference you have found. So first difference is in the transverse process, the second difference is in the distance between the superior and inferior articular process. Okay, so like this you can easily find out this is atypical vertebra L5 and this is a typical vertebra, that is either from L1 to L4. And next one more thing is the spine. You see it's very small, so this is the third reason. The spine is very small, short, rounded at the tip. So other features, other peculiar features of L5 vertebra are the body is largest of all vertebra and its anterior surface is much deeper, okay, than the posterior surface, and this difference is responsible for creation of sharp lumbosacral angle. So this is important. The sharp lumbosacral angle is formed by, okay, the sharp lumbosacral angle is formed by L5 vertebra. Okay, and the pedicels are directed backward and laterally. The superior articular facets look more backward than medially and the inferior articular facets look more forward than laterally, so as compared to other lumbar vertebra, that is with the typical lumbar vertebra. So this is the peculiar features of atypical and the typical lumbar vertebra. Now let us see what are the attachments, like what are the different muscles, ligaments attached to this lumbar vertebra. So by looking at this diagram, we can clearly understand the different muscle attachments. So let us start with it. First, coming to upper and lower surface. The upper and lower surface provide attachment to intervertebral disc. Yeah, that is here. Between this vertebra and other vertebra, there will be intervertebral disc in between, and the upper and lower borders give attachment to anterior and posterior longitudinal ligament. So this upper border, lower border give attachment to anterior, this one will give to attachment to anterior longitudinal ligament, this one will give attachment to posterior longitudinal ligament. Okay, and lateral to anterior longitudinal ligament, the right crus, you can see this one, the right crus of diaphragm is attached to the upper three vertebra, and the left crus of diaphragm is attached to upper two vertebra. So what they mean to say is, just lateral to the anterior longitudinal ligament, there is attachment of right crus of diaphragm, especially to upper three vertebra. Okay, and left crus of diaphragm is attached to upper two vertebra, and what they mean, total 5 vertebra. So upper 3 means L1, L2, L3 will have right crus, whereas L3, L4 and L5 will have left crus. Okay, so that thing you need to remember. And next, coming to behind the line of crura, actually this where the crus is attached, this is called line of crura. So behind this line of crura, the upper and lower borders of all the lumbar vertebra give origin to psoas major muscle. So you can see here, this is a psoas major muscle, and across the constricted part of body on either tendinous arches attached. So here there will be also attachment of some tendinous arches. Okay, and the lumbar vessels and gray ramus communicants from sympathetic chain pass deep to these arches. So there are some tendon arches, deep to that tendon arches there are like passing of lumbar vessels, gray ramus communicants from the sympathetic chain. Okay, now coming to vertebral canal. Vertebral canal is formed by first lumbar vertebra, contains the conus medullaris. So actually the first lumbar vertebra you have conus medullaris, which forms vertebral canal. The part which is formed by lower four vertebra contains quadra equina. I'll show that in another diagram. So in this diagram you can see this is called as vertebral canal, right? So this canal passes downwards. Okay, so especially in the first lumbar vertebra you can see the conus medullaris, right? Whereas in the the part which are formed by lower four vertebra, there will be cauda equina. So I'll show cauda equina in another diagram. So remember, the conus medullaris is in the first lumbar vertebra. So in this diagram you can clearly see this is conus medullaris and this is the cauda equina. So conus medullaris is actually a part of first lumbar vertebra, whereas the part which is formed by lower four vertebra contains the cauda equina, and this canal of all lumbar vertebra contains the spinal meninges. Okay, so this is about vertebral canal. Next we'll discuss about vertebral arch. So in this diagram you can see this is called as vertebral arch. Actually the pedicels are related above and below to spinal nerves. Okay, the lamina provide attachment to ligamenta flava, and the spine provides attachment to the posterior layer of lumbar fascia, and also the interspinous and supraspinous ligaments, and also to erector spinae, multifidus and interspinal muscles. So I will show you that. So in this diagram you can see here the erector spinae muscle, the multifidus muscle. So all these are attached to the spine of lumbar vertebra, and also not only this, there are also attachment of supraspinous ligament and interspinous ligament. Coming to the transverse process, especially the tips of transverse process of all lumbar vertebra give attachment to middle layer of lumbar fascia. So actually here you can see this is the posterior layer of lumbar fascia, and this is the anterior layer, this is the middle layer. So this middle layer is attached to the transverse process of lumbar vertebra. Okay, and in addition to this, the tip of first process gives attachment to medial and lateral arcuate ligament. Especially the first transverse process gives also attachment to medial and lateral arcuate ligaments. Okay, and the tip of fifth process for like fifth lumbar vertebra gives attachment to iliolumbar ligament. Okay, so these ligaments are important to remember. And the faint vertical ridge on the anterior surface of each transverse process, there will be some faint vertical ridge. That ridge on anterior surface of each transverse process give attachment to anterior layer of lumbar fascia. So you can see here, this is the anterior layer of lumbar fascia and going to attach to the faint ridge on the anterior process of transverse process. Okay, and the medial to ridge, the anterior surface gives origin to psoas major muscle. Here this is the psoas major muscle, and also lateral ridge to the quadratus lumborum muscle here. And the posterior surface is covered by deep muscles of back and gives origin to fibers of longissimus thoracis. Accessory process give attachment to medial intertransverse muscles, and the upper and lower borders provide attachment to lateral intertransverse muscle. So like many muscles are attached over this area. Next, coming to articular process. So articular process, the concave articular facets permit some rotation as well as flexion and extension. Actually, I need to show it here. So this articular process, as vertebra articulates with other, it will allow the flexion, extension, and also like rotation. Okay, and the medullary process give attachment to multifidus. Yeah, here you can see these are the medullary process, like, so they give attachment to the multifidus muscle and also to medial intertransverse muscles, so different muscles. Now coming to ossification, when this lumbar vertebra will undergo ossification, lumbar vertebra ossify from three primary centers, one for body here, one for centrum, and one for each half of neural arch. So this appear in third month of fetal life. The two appear wait yeah the two halves of neural arch fuse with each other posteriorly during first year. The fusion of neural arch with centrum occurs during sixth year. The posterior lateral parts of body develop from center of neural arch. So there are 7 secondary centers. Then upper annular epiphysis for upper surface of body, the similar epiphysis for lower surface of body, and one center for the tip of each transverse process, and one center for each mammillary process, and one center for tip of spine. So like this, 7 secondary centers and 3 primary centers. So for ossification you need to remember 3 primary, 7 secondary. Okay, so this is about ossification. Next, there are some clinicals like failure of fusion of two halves of neural arch results in spina bifida, like it will be like this two parts, spina bifida. And sometimes the body ossifies from two primary centers, and if one center fails to develop, it results in hemivertebra, means only half vertebra will develop. So now lastly we come to clinical anatomy. So here first you have the sacralization of fifth lumbar vertebra. Means the fifth lumbar vertebra or its transverse process may be fused on one or both sides with the sacrum. So the lumbar vertebra is fusing with the sacrum, and sometimes the transverse process may articulate with ela of sacrum. So sometimes what happens, the transverse process may articulate with ela of sacrum or with the ilium. So this may press on fifth lumbar nerve. So in the sacralization of fifth lumbar vertebra, the fifth lumbar nerve is affected. Next, coming to spina bifida. Actually, the two halves of neural arch may fail to fuse, leaving a gap in the midline, and this is called spina bifida. Meninges and spinal cord may herniate out through this gap. So protrusion of meninges alone results in formation of cystic swelling filled with cerebrospinal fluid, and this swelling is called meningocele. So in this diagram you can clearly see, as there is a gap between the it is not forming a spinous process, so there is a meningocele here. The spinal content is coming out, and there is also meningomyelocele. Meningomyelocele means when the spinal cord is also present in the swelling condition. So here see, the spinal cord is not present, only cyst fluid is present, but here even the spinal cord is present, so meningomyelocele. Okay, the central canal of herniation part of cord may be dilated. This condition is called syringomyelocele. If the herniated part of If the spinal cord also get dilated, then it is called syringomyelocele. And sometimes the spinal cord may itself open posteriorly, and the condition is called myelocele. So sometimes spina bifida is present, but there is no protrusion through it, so that there is no swelling on the surface. So this is referred as spina bifida occulta. So like there are many conditions. Spina bifida occulta means no swelling. Okay. Myelocele means spinal cord only come out. Okay. And syringomyelocele means even the spinal cord which has come out undergo dilation. So like this, there are different conditions. Next, coming to the spondylolisthesis. So sometimes greater part of fifth lumbar vertebra slip forward over the sacrum. Normally the tendency to forward slipping is prevented by fact that the inferior articular process of fifth lumbar vertebra lie behind superior articular process of first sacral vertebra. So sometimes, however, the inferior articular process of spine and lamina of fifth lumbar vertebra are separate from rest of the vertebra due to an anomaly in the mode of ossification. So the body of vertebra can now slip forwards, leaving the separated parts behind. So spondylolisthesis may be the cause of backache, pain radiating along course of sciatic nerve known as sciatica. So Spondylitosis is also related with sciatica. Let's come into fracture dislocation. Fracture dislocation of lumbar vertebra results in cauda equina syndrome. It is characterized by flaccid paraplegia, saddle-shaped area of anesthesia, and also analgesia, like sphincter disturbances in the form of incontinence of urine and fecus, and impotence. So this is all about the clinical anatomy related to it. That is the sacralization of fifth lumbar vertebra, spina bifida, spondylolisthesis, fracture dislocation, and that's it. So this is about lumbar vertebra osteology. Next we'll discuss about sacrum.